You maintain that you're more kind of entitled to, therefore, analyse Ireland and comment on Ireland because of that situation. When you're poor, you're actually, in a peculiar way, free.
Oh, you're hugely free. I mean, you can either have freedom or you can have money, but it's really hard to have both, I think. And I value freedom very highly. Like, when I was a kid, I thought, well, how much is an hour of my time worth? And I worked out how much an hour of my time was worth, and it turned out nobody could afford to hire me. So I had to do my own thing and chase my own thing. And I think if you're not the guy chasing the money, if you're one of the few guys who aren't chasing the money, you can catch much more interesting things than money. But you have to pay a price, and that's, the odd eviction or the odd dose of living on less than the dole, which I often did.
Yeah, you were evicted by landlords, in Galway?
Yeah, that was only about a year and a half ago, yeah.
Where are you living now?
Berlin.
Why?
It's cheaper than Galway. I can't afford to live in Ireland. I mean, because I love the way that in the old days it was poverty that drove the artists out of Ireland. And now it's prosperity, because if you're an artist in Ireland, you can't make the rent, But that's fine, it's good, I like the new Ireland, I think it's great. And I wouldn't say that I think I'm more entitled to write about Ireland because I've been extremely poor a lot of the time. Because it was voluntary poverty, it's a different thing. But I think I understand Ireland. I think a lot of the guys that were on the dole in the 80s are the most interesting guys talking about the Ireland of the 21st century. Like, I was on the dole queue, and Tommy Tiernan was 3 guys behind me in the dole queue or whatever, and I think he's the great philosopher of modern Ireland. I think he's the most intelligent thinker about modern Ireland, and I don't think it's any coincidence he's a comedian, because the more you think about modern Ireland, the bigger a comedian you become. It's the only way to think about it. It's a fantastic country. It's so funny.
So funny.
It's so funny, don't you think? I mean,
what makes you laugh then?
Everything about Ireland makes me laugh. Yeah.
Like what? I mean, do developers make you laugh?
Oh, they make me piss myself. I mean, the whole property thing in Ireland is just beautiful. It's like a religion. It's like it's like everyone became a Scientologist and nobody noticed that everyone had become a Scientologist. They all believe these things about, see that house there? That house is worth €5 million. And everyone goes, it is. And it isn't, And I just loved watching it happen. Like, in the book, I had to create a character, because when you're writing a book about Ireland, you want to create a modern myth. You want to create a story that'll last, like Ulysses or whatever. And you had to have a property developer. So I ended up inventing a guy called Jimmy O'Bliss, Jimmy Bungalow Bliss. And he had to be at the heart of the book because,
Now, why did you move to Berlin, of all places?
When my true love and I were evicted from Galway, I spent 7 years writing this book. So you shouldn't spend 7 years writing a book when you only have money for 3 years. This is advice to young writers. It was very liberating. It was kind of, okay, I've got no money. I can't afford to live here. So where can I afford to live? And the whole world suddenly opened up. It was like, I can go anywhere.
But you have to get
money. But you have to get there, yeah. Ryanair it's the salvation of the emigrant. We were able, my true love and I were able to emigrate from this country for €1.
So if Michael O'Leary flew to Peru, you could be in the Andes right now.
I'd be up on top of a llama even as we speak. Yeah.
So that's how you ended in Berlin.
50 cent each.
So do you find the living, whatever about getting there, why is it cheaper to live in Berlin?
Well, because it's like Galway in the 80s, but with 3 million people. They've got 17% unemployment. They owe €60 billion. They're bankrupt. They're depressed. All the buildings are empty. So it's perfect for artists. I'm not even joking. Artists are coming there from New York. They're coming there from Peru. They're coming because that's what you need when you're an artist. You need poverty. Yeah. And you need empty buildings, so you can rent a studio
or squat or whatever,
or put on a nightclub. Or
by the way, why did you guys call the band Toasted Heretic?
Well, Toasted Heretic. I like the ambiguity. It was kind of we had a list of 300 names, and we kept changing the name till we did a gig, and it was on the poster, and we were stuck with it. But I liked the name because is this heretic being toasted in champagne or on a steak over a fire? It's kind of. Because you never know which way it'll go.
You look at a lot of things in your writing, and one of the things is child abuse, sexual abuse by clergy, and yet you decide to spin it and make it funny. How can that be funny?
I think everything can be funny. I think that comedy is the God's eye view of life. The tragic view, the usual kind of very depressing Irish novel, has a tragic view of life, and that's great, and it's done very well by a lot of fellas. But that's just down there among the people thinking, life is terrible, I'm stuck here in the mud, and I'm going to die, and it's horrible. But to the gods, our lives are comical, and I think a novelist should be able to step back and say, look at how amazingly funny it is that we take all this so seriously when we know we're going to die in the end anyway. And even everything can be funny.
So how did you turn that particular subject around?
Well, in the book, it's hard, but Catch-22 is the best novel about World War II, and it's about war and people dying. So if he can do that, I can do Ireland. Well, in the book, Jude ends up in a pub and meets a bishop who is sorrowfully celebrating a victory in the High Court, where the hierarchy have taken 33,000 named children to court and sued them for abusing priests. And taking the innocence of these poor priests, many of them virgins when they joined the priesthood. They were afraid to tell anyone, the priests. They didn't tell anyone because they were afraid. And many of these men left where they, left the schools where they had been abused by often hundreds of children, and went to other schools and started all over again. There was no escape for them. And the thing that breaks the hierarchy's heart, the bishop's heart, is that the children have never asked the hierarchy for forgiveness. They've never accepted responsibility for what they did to these priests. And that is so close to the truth about the hierarchy's response. You just have to push it slightly. I mean, you all actually got the feeling at the time that everything was coming out that the hierarchy felt hard done by. And they were on the brink nearly of suing someone over all this stuff coming out.
Yeah. You haven't got any reactions, I presume, from members of the hierarchy to...
Well, the book comes out at the beginning of July, and we'll see how everyone reacts then.
All right, anyway, you've got 15 grand, less the money you paid back to your landlord, is that right?
I still have to pay back another grand, but then I'll be clear. Yeah.
And then you'll be clear. So that'll keep you going for another little while.
Yeah. I hop from rock to rock.
I
hope to become the James Joyce of Killinascully.
All right. And you don't mind the precarious nature of it all.
No, it's part of it.
So Jude is out, and that's part 1, and then there'll be part 2 and part 3.
Part 2 and part 3 will be published first on the internet, and then the whole book comes out in hardback next year. But part 1 is the piece set in Ireland. It's set in Tipperary, Galway, Dublin, and it's got everything that I could think of to say about modern Ireland, and I hope people will react well to it.
Well, I have to say, it's hugely funny. Hugely funny. I really enjoyed it. Thanks. Julian, Toast Heretic for one night only. They're back.
Okay.
Will you join them? Would you like to hear the song? The hit? All right, Julian Gough, thank you very much indeed. I'll introduce you if you'd like to. Okay. It started in this studio, and we're going to revisit that famous hit now with Julian Gough, with Galways and Los Angeles. That's what it's called. Reformed for one night only. Your biggest welcome, please, for Toasted Heretic.